This video is for leaders and business owners who want to create exceptional, engaging experiences for their employees and their customers. This is effectively another book review, a summary of the book, The New Gold Standard, which was ironically published in 2008. So though the book isn't new, the standards they discuss come across as new because so few companies actually use them, and most of them are cost-free. So it's basically just a happy coincidence. I didn't plan to read this book now. It was just in my library. I decided to read it, and it really aligns with a lot of the stuff I've been talking about personal excellence, about autonomy, about creating high levels of engagement and making things personally meaningful, and how that helps your employees stay engaged. It's actually amazing, given that I recently did the book review on Creativity, Inc. And I've also mentioned quite a bit the experience economy and the power of moments, that a lot of the elements that those books discuss are repeated here and demonstrated through the procedures, through the principles that the Ritz Carlton uses to have the high standards of excellence and the reputation they have in industry and have had for a long time. So even though it's about the Ritz Carlton, these principles, most of these practices are universal regardless of industry and for all stakeholders basically involved, but in particular, your employees and your customers. So there are 5 principles they talk about in this book, or he talks about, since it's a single author in this case, are define and refine, empower through trust, it's not about you, and deliver wow. I'll go into each one of these briefly. It's a limited time to even do that. But principle 1, define and refine, is as pretty much self-evident as it would suggest by the name. And that is to set the foundation and communicate your core identity and culture. And then the second part of that is to stay relevant. How that's done usually is through shared stories of what they call wow, which in the power of moments would have been called peak experiences. So the second principle is empower through trust. And this is about essentially letting your employees know that they can do anything they need to, and you won't suffer repercussions. Anything they need to satisfy, or more than satisfy, and more than even exceed your customers' expectations, but anticipate the unasked needs and wants of your customers. So it really comes down to a matter of trust. This is leaders fostering trust to create sustainable, successful, and profitable companies and employment. So it's not about spending money when you can't. It's about making a great enough company, a company worthy of people wanting to stay, people wanting to choose your company over another. And part of that is making an excellent business model that creates sustainable employment for them. Principle 3 is it's not about you. Surprise, surprise. It's about how it's about the customer. You don't build your company around what works for you. You build your company around what works for your ultimate customer. I know this is counter perhaps to some of the stuff that Richard Branson has said. It's a different approach, but it's really powerful. It's sort of customer derived. So you build your company and the procedures around what is most fulfilling, what is best for your customers. And this isn't to neglect your employees by any means. So it's essentially to build your business focused on others and your customers in particular. And they talk about support frontline empathy, anticipate the customer's unstated wants and needs. That's sort of the core essence of what this book really teaches that I really loved. And that principle 4 is deliver wow. Now, wow is kind of like what you'd think when you have an experience like you go, wow. In the Heath Brothers' Power of Moments, this would have been called a peak experience. So part of the things they talk about in it, they define wow, and they talk about how extremely satisfied customers are 2.5 times more likely to remain loyal customers than our merely satisfied or average satisfied customers. It's, yeah, I've already talked about this. It's exactly like what the Heath brothers talked about in terms of peak experiences, but from a customer perspective in particular. So then the next thing you need to do is you need to have the idea of the wow and turn it into action. So this gets back to the earlier principles that I was talking about. And the main way that they produce and reproduce and multiply their culture is to share and reinforce wow stories to perpetuate that piece of company culture. That is, they have a lineup at least twice a week, maybe more. I think it was twice a week, where all the employees at the start of shift and the end of shift, maybe, don't remember those specific details, would share stories of amazing things when you have empowered employees allowed to basically do whatever's necessary to make the customer not just happy, but to exceed their needs. Oftentimes, this is something simple, like they went out for a run and you knew they went out for a run. So you had a bottle of water delivered to the room and something else, a snack or whatever, knowing that and knowing the customer's names. So again, most of these things are actually really cheap, but it's a matter of paying attention, sort of being empathic and going beyond just what will satisfy the customer to what will make them say, wow. Pretty simple. And then the last one, principle 5, is leave a lasting footprint. And that has 3 pieces underlying that, which is aspire, achieve, and teach. So aspire for excellence in standards, but also in community standards and things like that. Achieve those and then teach those, which loops back to some of the other principles I've already talked about. So they talked actually a lot, you wouldn't expect this from Ritz Carlton, about sustainability and stewardship and how they've been active in that and charitable giving. And in fact, that they don't actually spend a lot of time talking about it because it's not about greenwashing or anything like that. It isn't for them to have bragging rights. It's because that's part of their real values and contributing to the community and the environment. It's one of the reasons you always see me wearing this. It's summer here in Japan. It's really hot and I could put on a suit, which would look better, it would make a nicer impression for you, but it wouldn't change the quality of my information. So simply put, by wearing something cool, I don't need to spend as much on, or I don't need to waste as much energy on cooling the space in which I record my videos. That doesn't help you in any way, yet the information does. Am I sacrificing something? Maybe, but I'm also standing up for my own values, which is the environment is an important thing. So even that, we're just starting, but really what this comes down to is if you give your employees the autonomy and the safety to do what is necessary to more than exceed your customers' expectations, to go beyond that to the point where you're anticipating. This is going to take, this is more about attention. It's about training. They spend something like 10% of their entire payroll. 10% of their payroll is the amount of training that the Ritz Carlton puts forward. So this gives you an idea of what it is. If you want to have really high standards, you empower people to live up to standards that are well defined, and then you give them permission to act on them without having to go do it. And then you have them share those exceptional experiences, those wow moments that they create, big and small. And because they're sharing them, that creates the culture. And then you train it, you reinforce it, you add that psychological safety, and you make something that most customers or most companies could have for their employees to make them a very attractive employer, and for customers to make them a very attractive customer. But it's not happening, but companies are not doing this by choice. It's already time. My name is Tim B. Green. This has been Crush It Club 176, the gold standard for excellence, or the new gold standard for excellence. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.